Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm freezing down here.
Wait a minute. You live in way down south, right? South Shutesbury.
Yeah, I'm designated to the basement for my Zoom meeting.
Warmer weather's coming.
Yeah, right.
It is. We got our sugar sap stuff out, so we're gonna start tapping trees this weekend because it
Oh,
looks like
nice.
start to reach the point where things will flow.
Yep, yep.
So that's hopeful.
Is this the weekend to tap?
I'm thinking it is, just looking at the temperature change. I mean, it's a little hard to say because last year was so weird. We
I
started
know last year we completely missed it. We only have a few trees and we were so late because it started so early. So this year I want to be on top of it.
yeah.
Yes, I heard talk of getting up to 40
Yeah,
next week. So that's yes.
get those bikes out.
Yes.
Let's get going. We're gonna beat you this year. Not a chance, huh?
What combined mileage?
All right. It is 7 o'clock, and I think inclusive of Beth's cat, we have a quorum. Um, uh, I
She's
know.
been to so many meetings lately. Like she just
So I believe Rita cannot make it. I have not heard from Alan, but we do have a quorum, so I think we should get started since it's now 7:01. I'll call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded, and all members are participating remotely. All right. The first item on our agenda is to review and vote on the minutes of January 13th. Is there a motion?
I make a motion we approve the minutes of January 13th as written.
I'll second that.
All right. I have two. I just have two small revisions.
Okay.
In item 3B, where you say the minutes say the committee would like to use the remaining, that should read the commission or the Conservation Commission.
3B.
3B for the Southbrook
The
Trails.
commission. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it doesn't sound like the CPC is asking to use it. And the
Okay.
other change is under item 5, just a clarification that what I was asking for at the meeting was um, if anybody objected to including a blank version of the grant agreement in the community preservation plan, which I've done. I did put that in now.
Okay, so I'll put that will include the grant agreement form in our documentation on our website?
Yeah.
Do you want, or do you want me to just not say after town meeting?
I mean, I guess you could say you could just remove after town meeting.
Okay,
I wanted to get it in there as soon as possible, just before
sure.
people are getting the applications in. Those are
Okay, so we're including, how about that?
okay.
Got it.
Are there any other revisions or changes? All right, seeing none, we'll take a vote. Reed,
Aye.
Puleo,
Aye.
Geddes,
Aye.
Wilson,
Hi.
Pangallo, aye. All right. Thank you, Elaine.
Sure.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda, the sort of meat of the meeting, is questions for grant applicants. This is a chance really for us to ask any questions we might have of those who are submitting applications. We're not sort of deliberating among ourselves right now, really. I mean, obviously we can talk to each other, and we're certainly not taking a vote at this point. We're just gathering information. And I guess the best way to do this would be to go in the order in which we receive them, which is the order that they're posted up on the CPC website. Starting with the gravestone project. Susan, hi, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll just open the floor up to any members of the committee who might have questions about the West Cemetery Restoration Project as described in the application.
So Walter is still the contact person?
Yes, Walter may try to come to this meeting, but he is in Hawaii.
Too bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's really suffering there. It's just so dry there and warm.
So Susan, I saw this is the same person who did the previous work, right? There's no change, just adding more stones to what they were doing.
Yes. And they were stones that she originally included in the project that's a 2-season project or a 2-grant project.
Do you happen to know how much of the cemetery is left sort of to target or that would be in future years, or is this kind of the final stage?
Mateo, that's a really good question, and you asked it before, so I should have tried to find an answer. But I don't have an answer for you because we really depend on her expertise in terms of pointing out which stones need help. But I would say I would just guess that we're dealing with the bulk of them now.
And this section of the cemetery, from I think what I read somewhere, is the oldest group of headstones that are there, and probably the ones that are have sustained the greatest damage.
Well, they certainly include a lot of old ones. The very old ones, oldest ones are of graves that came down from the cemetery that was pretty much where Town Hall is now. And I think those have pretty much been taken care of. So we're getting into 19th century gravestones now, first half of probably mostly pre and post Civil War. So they're pretty old.
43 stones.
Total, yeah, but only 22 or 23 should be done for this second project. Yeah.
Are there any other questions from anybody?
No.
No?
I mean, one thing I would ask about, and I think it came up last time the commission came for CPA money, was whether there's been any consideration of publicizing this work a little more, even if it's like just on the Cemetery Commission webpage or some kind of photo documentation for people to see the kind of, because the transformation that happens for these stones is pretty incredible. And I
Mhm.
think you might be impressed by learning about that and maybe hearing some of the stories behind some of the stones. I don't know. I mean, that's not the kind of thing I think you can use CPA money for, but even just something on the website, there might be some interest in town for that.
Yeah, we did talk about it at one point in time about including some stories in our town newsletter, which we didn't do. But I think that's an excellent idea, Mateo, and I'm making a note of that for us to talk about at our next meeting.
Well, I was certainly struck by the two photos that you provided for a couple of the stones that were worked on, and just the transformation on that is pretty amazing. And so
Mhm.
that's,
It-
I think, is supporting what Matteo has said, that it really is very impactful, and so good story to tell.
You know, these are so neat. I took a young person who was about 9 years old over to see the old gravestones in Leverett over by the co-op there.
Mhm.
And I think young kids just are amazed by looking at this and looking at the people's ages and, you know, where they were in history. And then, you know, it's a great project for the elementary school, and it's walkable distance for them, and, you know, gives them a sense of what their town is.
Are you thinking that we should reach out to somebody in particular at the elementary school who might be
I-
interested in doing that?
I would suggest you reach out to the principal and see if there's anybody there that would be interested. I mean, they do history in all the different classes. It would be a great thing for them to walk through there and to do some rubbings and stuff. That might be a really cool thing for one of the classes.
Yeah.
Or a site visit during the work itself. I mean, it checks the
Oh,
box,
yeah.
history
Yeah.
and science, you know, conservation work.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, are there other questions for the applicant?
Nope.
No.
All right. Thank you very much, Susan.
Yeah. Thank you all very much.
All right, we're going to move right along to our next application, which we received from the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee for phase one, I guess, is the best way to describe it, of the Lake Wyola Dam preservation and repairs, this sort of study portion. Hello, Mark.
Hey,
Thanks for joining us.
my pleasure.
All right. Are there any questions from members of the committee or Beth Scat?
She's just too much. Okay.
I had a question. When you put the funding down, it had a major portion of the expenses to be covered by a grant from the Mass Office of Dam Safety. And just curious where things stand with that. Is it the chicken and egg, waiting until the decision is made on the CPC funding before that application is made, or that's in process? And also, just with this day and age and hearing about lots of funding cuts, and is it anticipated that there would be any impacts to funding given cuts on the federal level that might impact us at the state level?
Those are outstanding questions that I don't have the answer to. Up until recently, we believed that the Office of Dam Safety would provide 75% matching, but that's not a given. And that is, so one of my questions for you guys is, what happens if that doesn't come through? We're also looking at other funding options. So there's at least two funding options through a state, plus a couple of other funding options federally that we're looking at. But it is entirely possible that these funds don't come through. We're hoping they are. We are anticipating they are. But there's no guarantee. It's just a matter of, they're really, the CPC funding is independent of the Office of Dam Safety funding. And one is not contingent upon the other.
But
But there's nothing that you can do with our funding without theirs, correct?
That's absolutely correct. Well, unless the design work for the dam restoration is $55,000. We're asking for 25% from CPC or CPA, and on the assumption that we'll get, the 75% from the state. Um, you know, there is a chance that that doesn't come through, and if it doesn't come through, I'm not sure what to do at that point.
The, that 75% or the grant from the Office of Dam Safety is itself contingent on having the 25% match, right? They-
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
An
as
egg.
far well, I mean, normally, I think normally with applicants, we look for them to have the matching funding in place in advance, but because this essentially we're providing the match to leverage this state funding, I don't think that there's any problem with, as long as it's articulated in the warrant article, and, if it goes to town meeting and in the grant agreement that the funding is contingent on this other 75%, grant coming. I don't know that that's really an issue. Obviously, we would want to check with Donna about that, but um, yeah, I guess the question is what happens with the dam if that larger grant doesn't come through.
And they sort of hold on to the CPA funds for a future grant application. Like if this year's grant to the Office of Dam Safety fails, but we've awarded them the money from CPA. Can they hold that for, say next year's round of grant applications with the Office of Dam Safety?
So the language in the sort of template grant agreement is that work on the project must commence within 1 year from the first day of the fiscal year following the town meeting vote to appropriate funds. So within 1 year of the first day of the fiscal year, so of this coming fiscal year. And then it must be completed within 3 years from the commencement date. As far as what constitutes commencing work,
Yeah.
it could be submitting the grant application to the Office of Dam Safety. I mean, we're not
Yeah.
super specific there. And also
We're going to be loose with that.
yeah, this is language that we put into the grant agreement. So it's language that, we would be able to shape. I don't know. I don't think that's something we would have to present to town meeting. Town meeting's just voting to appropriate it. The grant agreement is something that comes from us and the select board to the grantee. So if we wanted to pad it and say 2 years, must commence 2 years from the first day, I think there's no reason we couldn't do that.
Yeah, well, because it sounds like Mark's saying they're looking at a variety of grants. So if the state Office of Dam Safety one doesn't work, they might be looking at others within the next year that the CPC money could also, be used towards as match, I guess. It's not committed to that particular grant program. Mark, are you working on the grant application and submitting it?
Yeah, we're not doing it. Actually, our dam engineering company, GZA, they have a grant specialist who's working on it. And there's a new one that just came out from the executive office of something. Yeah, they're applying for, but that may be not applicable for publicly owned dams and maybe only applicable for privately owned dams. But it's still an option that we're looking at. And there's a few other potential sources. So, I don't know what to say. This is all new. It's kind of all new to me, and I'm just hoping things pan out. I mean, we've gotten money for the state in the past to rebuild the dam, and we may need to flex some political muscle to get some funding to start repairing the dam. And so there's this year's funding, which is to do the statement of work and the design work to rebuild it. And then there's another phase next year to actually do the work, which is the $150,000 work expense.
So you'll be back in front of the CPC.
Oh, without doubt. Yeah.
Is that second phase under the same sort of 75%, 25% match rules?
We're hoping so. It's like, yeah, it's again, it's I'm guessing a lot of this stuff here. I know that the right now it's really the goal is to get the money now for the design part, and then the next year get the money to do the implementation part from the Office of Dam Safety. And everyone seems optimistic, but you never know.
Sounds good.
I mean, it's the GZA, the engineering company, it's to their benefit that they are successful in getting grant money. So there's a financial interest in for them to be successful. So that's always helpful.
Mhm.
And they're also working on other aspects of the dam. So they're becoming effectively our dam engineering company. And so they're looking at a bunch of other things that were related to the dam and related to the lake.
Are they doing are you guys paying them? They're doing the another phase one inspection, right? Like a update.
Yeah, the phase one inspection has to be done every 2 years.
Yeah.
And our previous dam engineer, Morris Root, retired. GZA has taken on that responsibility, and that they're scheduling this summer, I think, summer fall, to do the 2025 phase one examination. They'll also do it 2027 and 2029. So it's every 2 years we do these things.
Yeah. That'll be good to have, if they're the ones sort of doing the grants and possibly moving forward with the actual repairs, for them to do the phase one. The list of repairs may change up a little bit between GZA and Root.
Yeah.
So that's all good.
Well, hopefully it won't change. Hopefully the scope won't increase. And I don't think they will.
Right.
Most of it is not cosmetic. Most of it, the work on the dam is, the primary one is the leak that's in the outflow valve that needs to be repaired. But the more important one, in my perspective, is concrete work on the top of the dam. The idea is the way the dam is designed is that there's a spillway, and if we have a microburst or a hurricane or like a huge rainfall, if the spillway overflows, then the top of the dam becomes the spillway. And right now, the top of the dam needs to be re-cemented, needs to be restored back to its original condition, so that if we ever get to that point, the dam won't, essentially wash itself out.
Yeah.
And in which case we have a much more serious problem. So it's a low probability event, but but with climate change, it happened. The last time it got to that point, it was in '98, and so hopefully it won't get to that point again. So it's really just making sure the dam is ready for whatever happens.
Yeah, it's important.
There are other questions from members of the committee? All right. Seeing none. Thank you, Mark. That was very helpful.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the consideration, and appreciate the help in getting the application together.
Yep, looks great. Thank you. All right, moving right along. Historic Town Guide Board, Town Common Guide Board Foundation, which I realize makes it sound like we're starting a nonprofit organization or something. Cement Foundation. I guess, Henry, you can speak to this, and I can speak to it as well, since I wrote the application. If there are questions from anybody else on the committee about what it is we're doing and why.
One question I had was with the location where it was previously, is it proposed to go back in that same location or set back a little bit further back from the road, so it's not being subject to spray from plow debris being during winter storms being thrown into the area?
Henry, you talked to the select board about this, right?
Did, yes. we ran it by the select board essentially to move it slightly, 4 to 8 feet. They were game as long as it does not interfere with the other monuments on the common, and as long as it can be seen from both roads. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's been moved before. It was moved in like, well, I think it was like 1938. It was put on a tractor and moved off the, moved away from the very corner. You can actually still see the stone that it sat on. I mean, you can't see it right now because it's under 12 inches of snow, but the stone, the original stone is still there, and you can see it was right at the corner of the intersection. And it was then moved back to where it is now, where it was, and put on 4, or really 3 3/4 pavers because one of them was broken, just sitting on the ground. And even that location is, you know, as you said, Cliff, prone to. I mean, there's a pile of snow in that spot now, if you go down there. So we felt moving it back a little ways will, you know, all aid in preserving it.
Mhm. Good.
We did ask the highway department about doing the foundation, and they took a pass on it. So we put out quotes, and I contacted a bunch of local concrete companies, which is where we got the amount.
So the town would not do it?
They would not do it.
Hmm.
It would be great if they would. I imagine it would be more affordable.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
And one other question I had was the base itself, will it be at ground level or slightly elevated? I know the signboard itself will be up a little bit, but will the actual surface of the foundation be flush with the ground? Or just wonder, with it being more encouraging of vegetative creep on the side coming in, if it is flush, that it's
So yeah, the plan that went out for the to the companies for bid was based off the feedback we got from Steve Smolsky and from the building committee, which was that the pad should that there should be a gravel. We should excavate down, level it, put down gravel. It's going to be floating above the frost line though, and the pad is going to then stick up above ground several inches, and the
Mhm.
concrete itself will be sloped away from the center point, so the moisture will uh, flow away from the board instead of towards it.
yeah.
But so it'll be up a little ways. It's not going to be as high. I think it's Henry. Where was that other guide board that the commission was looking at the photos of? Was it
New Salem.
was the one in New Salem? That one's pretty high up,
Mhm.
right? It's not going to be like that, but it will be several inches up above ground.
Mhm.
All right. If there are no other questions, we can move on to the second guide board grant. This one is for phase 2 of the restoration project itself, which, if you recall, Williamstown provided the phase 1 project was basically just the main structure, and we decided to punt on the question of the roof piece. That became the phase 2 portion of the project, which is what this is for. If there are any questions, I guess Henry and I can answer them.
At one point, I remember there was a design for a structure that would be constructed over the signboard itself. Is that still in play? And if so, how does that interact with this proposal?
Not at all. We
Okay.
discarded that option and opted for having it on the grounds as it was before.
Okay, thanks.
Hmm. So it'll basically look, I'm looking at the pictures, it'll look like the first picture?
This is what we're looking for. This is from 1911. This
Mm-hmm.
or the cupola that you're familiar with was added in the 60s or 70s. Williamstown and Smolsky both said it's not historically original to the piece or in keeping with its original configuration. Smolsky also said it was not actually doing anything in the way of preventing water or snow from protecting the roof of it. So based on the fact that the commission felt it was important to go back to what was historically authentic as possible, it was cheaper and more in keeping, we felt, with the Secretary of the Interior standards for how restoration funding should be spent to restore it to its original appearance, which is this sort of hip roof structure as opposed to the cupola, cedar shingled.
Yeah, the cedar shingle just didn't look like it was holding up. I mean, that's, yeah, okay. Makes sense.
One of the other things about the shingling is in Smolsky's report, he had some suggestions for treatment. I suspect that the shingles that were put on previously on the cupola piece and the lower roof piece might not have been treated with a water repellent. So he had some suggestions for specific product to put on the shingles to help them last, as well as a sort of a plastic mesh product that goes underneath them that helps them dry from underneath as well, so they don't cop and crack.
Just by way of context, one of the reasons things changed over the last couple of months is that we got input from Steve Smolsky, wood scientist, PhD, who had some input on the materials that would be appropriate for preserving it outside, and so that's basically what we're following. He gives very detailed description of the kinds of materials that would be useful.
So when you say you're going to be putting shingles on it, I'm looking at the contrast of the pictures from the early ones to what it was now. So it doesn't look like there are shingles on the earlier one, and maybe that's just the picture. Looking at it, it looks almost like a solid
Yeah.
top.
So I think you're right. When I look at that image, and the one in unfortunately the images in the grant application is not quite as, I'll pull this one up again so you can see. I think you're right, Elaine. I think that the top of it is, 4 pieces for the lower hip, and then that top piece is probably just a single piece.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, it was probably copper or lead,
Right.
both of
Yeah.
which are good, to avoid any water damage.
So and again, what's reflected in the application is again following the guidance that we got from Smolsky.
And that is to put shingles on.
Yeah, so it would be the same profile, the same structure with the flat top and the hipped roof, but with shingling.
Hmm.
We're still waiting to hear from the folks doing the actual repair. as to the material for that pad, the score pad on the top there.
I mean, one of the other frustrating things is that we don't know. I mean, we know fairly well through anecdote about the recent history of the guide board's repair and constant upkeep and repainting. But we don't know the sort of earlier history of that, right? Short of, we know roughly when it was moved. But other than that, we don't know how often somebody from town was going out there and touching up the paint, replacing boards, like changing anything on it. And unfortunately, there just aren't early photos, sort of, you know, before at least this one, before the 1911 one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I tried to be careful and not say like this is the structure as it was when it was built. It's simply the earliest documented version that we have. But yeah, I think you're right about the shingles not being evident in that picture. And that kind of that had come up at the historical commission meeting, at the last one.
Yeah, it would be nice to put like a copper top on it and leave it at that. Instead of shingles. Would that be terribly expensive to do?
I don't think so.
Hmm?
I don't think so. We're actually waiting to hear back on that portion of it.
Elena, are you talking about just that little flat cap, or are you talking about the
No, I'm talking about the whole thing.
old
The
roof?
whole thing, because it looks like the whole thing is one piece versus shingles, which in the later ones, you can see the shingles are warping and, you know, coming off each other. And probably that's where some of the leakage is coming in from.
The only thing that, I mean, I think my primary concern about copper, I guess not knowing how, you know, it would change the price, is whether that would be a target for vandalism and theft. I mean,
Oh,
I
wow.
know copper is, I mean, folks have the top of their copper fence posts taken a lot, and just,
Wow.
it's a
It's a different world.
might be putting a target out on town common. Maybe I'm just paranoid, but
But you know, Smolsky's recommendations and the work that they're doing on it actually is is about reinforcing the understructure of the roof itself. So there's going to be lots of protection on the inside, and yeah.
I mean, I think maybe it's not a bad idea for Henry or I to reach out to Williamstown and ask about, you know, ask about that, about, you know, if it
Metal
wasn't,
roof.
what would it be? Obviously, we don't want just whole pieces of wood, because that's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to last long.
Well, the difference between, you know, shingles on our houses and metal roofs, it's a big difference. So I'd be interested in hearing that. But other than that, I'm fine with this.
Are there other questions in the committee? All right, let's move on to, I guess we can kind of take the next two together as one, right, Beth, which is the South Brook Conservation Area Trail repair. We have kind of a option A, option B before us.
Yeah, it's really one application is for all the money for the repairs to the trails and the new blazing and the new bridges and all. And then the other is just an idea that that might be asking a bit much from the CPA budget. So we split the construction work into 2 years. That application, the amount of money that's being asked for would include design for everything that is going to happen, but the actual construction costs would be split between 2 years. So we'd be, I guess the idea is to come back and ask for more money next fiscal year for the continuation of the actual bridge work. That's why we did that, thinking that the first one was a little too much money to ask for, considering there's that Lake Wyola Dam application that's also open space and recreation. So, but yeah, the work is basically based on an assessment of the trails that was done using CPA funds a few years ago. And we took that, and Scott Kahn he's a member of the Conservation Commission, and he's kind of taken this on. He got a quote from a fellow that I actually know, Pete Westover. He used to be the conservation director in Amherst a long time ago. So he got a quote, updated quote from Pete for doing the bog bridging, doing some larger bridges. I think that's why it ended up being pretty expensive. Is there some areas, like if you go into Southbrook from the dirt part of Wendell Road and you head kind of downhill there's an area there where it's really a real stream coming through, and so it needs more than just bog bridging. It needs some real bridge work done, and that's what Pete's company does, a lot of that. And so he gave us that quote for 72,000, I think it is, for the actual work. And then the match would be the Comcom doing a lot of the blazing. I think a lot of the eventual sort of painting possibly of the bridges. Some of the wetland permitting is going to be just Comcom. We'd pay a consultant to do a delineation, but then we would be putting forward some of the labor hours to get the permit applications in and things like that. So that's what it is.
So a question is, and I appreciate this two-prong approach, that just having options depending on what other projects are potentially in the pipeline. And so I do appreciate it being kind of a two-phase option as with this. Obviously, if it's all done as one, it probably is more efficient than it being broken into two different parts of the project, but probably not extraordinarily more difficult and expensive, problematic, that breaking it into two. Is that a fair assessment of the situation?
I think so, yeah. I think Scott was trying to kind of set up a design build type contract with Pete. And yeah, I think we did talk a little bit about how if we did it all as one, the overall cost might be a little cheaper, because you've got people there. You got to mobilize people to a site like this to do this kind of work. And if we divide it into two, you got to do that 2 times. If we go with the same company, which we probably would try to do, and because he'll do the whole design. If we split it, they'll do the design the first year. I think it might cost a little bit more construction wise, mostly just because of mobilization, that kind of thing. But I think as long as we stick with the same company and do design build approach, I don't think it's that much more money if we split it. That's what I understood from Scott. Talked to Pete. I didn't talk to Pete, but that was what I understood.
Was there an actual application?
Yep, a CPA application?
Yeah, I just couldn't find it in my mail. I don't know. Just
Oh.
maybe I just not having control.
Yeah, there's two of them. There's one for the 1 year and one for the split over two. I'm also getting in the habit of putting our grant applications on the CPC website,
I really appreciate that, by the way.
and whichever ones this is based off of some very helpful feedback I got from a citizen of Shutesbury, leaving them up there through town meeting for any of the applications that we're presenting, so that people can read the full thing. But yeah, so if you ever can't find an email from me with them, then that's where I'm always going to put them up on the website.
So Beth, these are identical except for one of them being 1 year and the other one being 2 years, right?
Yep, yep, like the work is the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
This doesn't include signage or parking, correct? This is just the trails.
We've got some signs, well, blazing, which is kind of a signing, and that would be part of the match done by members of Concom. And then we do have signs would be purchased and installed in year 2 under separate grant applications. So this, I'm looking at the one that's split between the 2 years. But yeah, we are, this costing includes signage.
Yeah, there's the $3,000 for purchase new signs
Yeah.
in the larger of the
Oh yeah,
applications.
Yep.
and that's coming from the Concom.
Yeah.
But no parking.
No. Nope.
And where would people park when they come there?
People can park down by the boat ramp. That's kind of, one end of Southbrook.
Mhm.
And then on the Wendell Road, and I know there's sort of like a pull off there with room for maybe 1 or 2-ish cars, a little bit, but yeah. So the only parking would really be at one end.
Mhm.
There's
And
also
that gets,
Lox Pond on the Lox Pond Road side. There's a pull off on the opposite side of the road, right?
Yeah, is that 1 or 2 cars there too, probably?
It's not.
Yeah,
Cliff, you bike by there, right?
Yes, yes. No, there you can fit a number of cars there, kind of right across from where the sign is, the south
you
of the
can, okay.
sign. Yeah, yeah. And
That's
there, yeah, you can pull well off the road.
so would you be improving that parking or kind of highlighting it? Because I
I
know
don't think
parking
there's
down by the
no,
dam is tough.
yeah. Yeah, there's no funding or anything in this trail improvement for parking, but if we're doing signage, I think that that usually kind of goes along with even though, maybe some signage saying where people can park. I don't know, we haven't thought, thinking if all this work gets done, doing some kind of informational thing on maybe the Conservation Commission webpage, just talking about, look at all the work all the improvements that were done, and here's where you can park. That kind of thing. But yeah, there's no money in here specifically to improve the parking at all.
Mhm.
Signage though is in it, and that could include something having to say, you can park over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times, at least 2, maybe more, and it definitely needs something.
Mhm.
I got lost in there.
Did you?
Well, there are very few signs, and
Mhm.
The
No.
trails are, there's some really nice trails in there.
There's no trail map on the website, is there? Is there?
On what website?
No,
The town website?
there's a lot of little side trails in there, and
Mm.
part of what Liam had recommended in his assessment that was done a few years ago was to kind of really designate what is a trail, where people should be walking, and where people really shouldn't. So
Yeah.
that is with signage, and also
Mhm.
possibly, you put bog bridging and new bridges, and even and blazing certainly kind of will help us to direct people onto where they really should be and where they really shouldn't be. And maybe then, it'll be easier to not get lost, but it'll also actually protect the environment better. If we really can keep people on major trails and stop the use of little side trails that go off. It's all better for people to not get lost, and also just better for the environment there.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's spots there that are just so muddy that you can't get through unless you've got really good boots on. And people tend to not like that after a while,
I think it's an important project, and I've been aware of this particular area for a while. And I guess one question for you: what is the difference besides the cost between the two applications? I read them through quickly.
It's really the same work. So the two
Yeah, it is.
applications are the same. It's just trying to split the cost up, so that we're not asking for as much money this fiscal year.
Up front. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the same work.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions from the committee, let's move to the last one, which is the top of the lake invasive plant management application, also from the Are there any questions, committee members, about this one? Nope.
No,
Nope.
it's pretty
Great.
easy.
Mhm.
Yeah. Again, something that previous CPA money went towards making improvements to that little conservation area, which is such a cute little conservation area. I love it. And this just is a continuation of that. So
This is, I guess, kind of jumping subject a little bit, but do you know if are there problems with invasives in Southbrook Conservation Area? I mean, is that something that might be a future need?
there is definitely some. Yeah, it potentially. I would say it's a much larger conservation area. The invasives are different. It's not buckthorn. I don't see it as much of a problem there as it is right by the lake. The shore there at the top of the lake really has an invasive issue going on. So possibly down the road, but
Any other questions from the committee? Nope. Right. Well, thank you, Beth.
sure.
All right. So the next item on our agenda is the grant agreement. So it occurred to me that we are trying to always implement a grant agreement when we award funding, and we didn't actually issue one yet for the high school track and field project, which is proceeding without us issuing them a grant agreement, of course. And I think that it's important, that we do this because it's the expectation that we have for all of the applicants.
Mhm.
So the draft that I sent you it's basically taking the one that we've used, not last year because we had no applicants last year, but the year before that, and decided that we want to keep using going forward. So I wanted to get any responses to it, any changes that you'd like to see made, and a formal vote on allowing me to send it to the powers that be in Amherst.
I thought it looked good.
Me too.
No questions.
Yes, no, looks good.
All right, I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to issue the grant, what was it, grant approval? Grant
An agreement.
agreement with the town of Amherst ARPS for the track.
Seconded.
Any other discussion?
Nope.
None, we'll vote. Reed,
Aye.
Leo,
Aye.
Geddes,
I
Wilson,
Aye.
Gallo, aye. All right, put that on my to-do list. Unanticipated business. I will say, I don't want to get too much into this because Rita's not here and this is kind of her bailiwick, but Barbara Carulli, who's the chair of the Leverett Affordable Housing Trust, has been reaching out to Rita and I about this has been something they've been talking about for a while, about some kind of partnership between Leverett and Shutesbury, and possibly also seeing if Pelham or Wendell or some of the other small towns might be interested in getting involved to basically pool resources to have FERCog hire a designated affordable housing advisor to serve our communities specifically. And this came about because we're all in kind of the same boat in that the CPA funding that we have for affordable housing projects is really not enough to make a difference given the cost of housing. And so this is an alternative. So Barbara had sent me some information about it and to Rita, including some sort of sample job descriptions for who the person might be. And the idea is that each town would basically pitch in some of that affordable housing CPA money each year, and that would go towards FERCog hiring a full-time staff member just for our towns. I can share those sample job descriptions with the rest of the committee if you guys would like.
What would this person be? I'm sorry, I'm trying to take minutes on this. Designated a historical what?
This person would be an affordable housing coordinator.
Affordable housing coordinator. Thank you.
Serving 3 or 4 towns, not more than that, because then they would be spread too thin. And the idea was that since no one town has the resources to hire someone to do that really, by putting it at FERCog, they can hire somebody full-time, salary, benefits, and all that. And we would all get to kind of share them. And their job would basically be tracking legislation, advising on specific issues, grant writing, things like that.
So the only problem would be if we talk to Pelham, they're not in Franklin County. So it would have to be Wendell or New Salem.
And also, are Wendell and New Salem CPA communities? I mean, I guess they could fund it through other mechanisms. That's their business. I can send to the rest of you what it is that she has sent to me and Rita, so you can see what it is we're looking at.
And would this qualify for CPA funding? Would it?
The position?
Did they?
I mean, I think that it would. I can do some research into that and find out.
You mean hiring the person?
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be FERCog having that person?
So we would basically be paying money to FERCog, and FERCog would be hiring that person, and they would be handling like all of the HR stuff, benefits, insurance, and all of that. But each town would be putting in some money.
Got it.
But that's a good question, Cliff, about whether this would actually qualify for CPA money, because it's different in Leverett because they have the trust. So the CPA, their CPA money goes into the trust, and then the trust gets to do whatever they want with it. not whatever they want with it, but you know, whatever they want within the remit of their trust agreement.
Mhm.
But I suppose you're right, Cliff. This is kind of the first question, because if the answer is no, then
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we go to town meeting for another position.
that'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right, that's the only thing I had. I wanted to make you all aware of. I'm going to find out about the community preservation, what the coalition says about the funding question before I bombard you with all of the other stuff.
Okay.
right.
Any
It's a
other?
great idea. If it's doable, I think it's a good
Yeah.
idea.
It would be nice to start doing something along those lines. I had hoped that maybe we could do something similar to Leverett and set up a trust fund and do like down payment assistance and rental assistance and those kinds of things. And even, you know, I would prefer to do a little bit to help a lot of people than to just build like one house, you know, which I think is great, but that helps one person. It's like, it doesn't really, like, unless we're building a lot of houses to fix the supply and demand problem, we're really not going to be impacting house prices. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Has anyone talked about organizing a trust in Shutesbury?
so Rita and I talked about it a little bit last year, and the idea kind of didn't really go anywhere. It kind of turned into this conversation about turning to FERCog for help instead.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how it would work. I don't think it could actually come from the CPC. I think it would have to be effectively the select board setting up a new committee, an
Mhm.
affordable housing committee or trust fund committee, and then opening that.
Yeah,
And then what we would do is periodically we would vote as a committee to put money from the CPA accounts into, well, to ask the town to put CPA money into that trust fund. So I don't know. I think maybe there's a great conversation to have with Rita when she comes back.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
We all rested up and ready for this.
She's volunteered to do it by not being. All right. There's no other, is there any other unanticipated business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion we adjourn for the evening.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Reed,
Aye.
Leo,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Wilson,
I
Gallo, aye. We are adjourned at 8:01. Have a great night, everybody. Stay warm.
Okay.
you
You
too.
too. Bye-bye.
Right.